So I'll start off with saying Mob Psycho 100 is an amazing anime. It has all the elements of a good show. Interesting characters, good story, amazing action, and when it gets to the big battles, the animation is so cool. However, before I talk about the story, let me say this. I know some people might avoid the anime due to its art style, and I don't blame you. I myself do this with some shows, and while it's not a great practice, it's what it is. But after watching the first few episodes, it actually grew on me, and I completely forgot the distaste I had towards the art style by the end of the show. I guess you could say it's one of those don't judge a book by its cover scenarios, and honestly, watching a few episodes won't do you no harm, so I would genuinely recommend watching it as it's a masterpiece behind its rather crude drawings. That being said, let me get into the story and explain Mob Psycho a bit for you. We start off with the two main characters. The first one we see is Reigen Arataka, a self-proclaimed master exorcist that owns his own shop/business called Spirit and Such Consultation Office. He's a shrewd businessman, and even though he boasts about exorcising spirits, he has no psychic powers at all. And that brings me to two things. In this world there are psychics that have powers, but usually specialize in one thing, such as pyrokinesis, which allows them to control fire, or telekinesis, which allows them to control objects. But there are many powers beyond this. They gain these abilities through trauma they experience early in their lives, but I think it can also be passed on through generations, but don't quote me on that. These psychics also have the power to interact with spirits, which also exist and can range from power to size, etc. Our next main character, Shigeo Kageyama, is a said psychic. Shigeo and Reigen both know each other as they met when a young Shigeo came to Reigen's shop looking for guidance with his powers. But as we discussed earlier, Reigen has no powers, and he didn't even believe Shigeo until he saw him lift a teacup with his mind. Since then, Shigeo has been working under Reigen as his student and helping him exorcise demons for real. These are the two main characters of the story as it revolves around them. You could argue that Shigeo, aka Mob, is the real main character as we follow him around the most, but in my opinion, Reigen is essentially an extension of Mob and vice versa. I'll probably get into this soon, but I'll go a bit further into the story while trying my best not to spoil everything. The duo continue with their lives, exorcising ghosts and spirits wherever they may be. Sometimes they're small and other times they're dangerous. But with Mob being a really strong psychic, they never really have trouble. However, as they do exorcising jobs, things start to change around them. They meet new people, some normal and some who are psychic like Mob, and witness the change in Mob throughout the story. While we're on about story, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. This really is an impressive story. Like I said, it has all the elements of a good show, and this shows it. If anything, the most enjoyable experience is watching how Mob changes from beginning to the end. You see, Reigen acts like Shigeo's mentor throughout. Even though he's a businessman on the outside and essentially uses Mob for his own gain, he hates putting him in danger as even he can see that Mob is still a child with immense power. He hammers into him the ideology of not using his powers for himself, but instead using it to help others. And this bond that they share only grows as you watch, and sometimes it reaches its climax in the best way possible. On that note, characters get a 9 out of 10. There's a lot of varied characters in the anime. Some that are normal but still hold weight like Reigen, and of course, his humor is great. There's also Mob's family that plays a big part later on, as you'll see. Also, it'd be a crime not to mention the Body Improvement Club, which is simply a bodybuilding club but raised to the max in the best way. If there's one problem I have, it's that while every character gets some screen time in one episode or another, they usually don't appear until later on, and aren't as important by then unless they have a strong connection to Mob. Other than that, I do very much appreciate the varied cast. As I have no idea of how to segue into the next rating section, and as a big you to Kuba, I'll give the action a solid 10 out of 10. Because there's psychics in the show, they could do a lot of action, and let me tell ya, they don't hold back. There's some beautiful and horrifying destruction in some episodes, and they're fed to you in a reasonable time within the first and second season. And the final battles? God, it's beautiful to watch. As for the sound, they do really hit it on the nose in this one. It's a solid 9 out of 10 for me, as not only is the sound design amazing in the show, but also the intros and outros sound so damn good. They go along with the anime rather than being a random song, and in my opinion, the opening visuals and music give a good indication of how it's going to go. So if you're into intro music like myself, then have a listen to the first and second season openings and outros. Now, I've already touched upon the animation at the beginning, but as a rating, it's an 8 out of 10. You might be wondering why it has such a high rating when a lot of people I've talked to didn't like the look of it. It's because, like I already said, it grows on you. If anything, the animation portrays the anime perfectly once you get into a few episodes. Overall, we get a 45 out of 50 on Mob Psycho 100, and I feel like this is a very fair rating. It's a top-notch anime, and despite the art style that many people don't like, I genuinely think it's an amazing show that people should watch, especially if they like goofy, action-packed anime. Anyways, that's about it for this one. I hope you enjoyed the video, and be sure to give us a like and maybe subscribe. And of course, if you didn't fully agree or think I missed anything, pop it down in the comments below, as we love reading what people thought about the anime and our review. Aight, see you in the next review.